All right, it's the game is the game, NBA live stream of consciousness. Um, subscribe, all that, trade deadline. Let's go ahead and get into it. What I was praying for yesterday happened. The Nets traded James Harden to the Sixers for Ben Simmons, two picks, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond. Who do I think won this trade? I think the clear winner of the trade is Philadelphia. Now, I know a lot of people saying, well, they gave up a lot with Seth Curry. They gave up a lot with Andre Drummond, who's one of the best backup bigs in the league, and those two picks for a player who, at James Harden, who is coming towards the end of his prime and who's going to be getting a massive contract extension after this year. But the fact of the matter is this: both teams are playing for a championship. That's all that matters. I'm doing this live. We're still 30 minutes to the NBA trade deadline, so I'll report the trades as they come in. Shout out to my man Marty. He said I should be getting on live, and just when he was saying that, I was getting the computer fired up. But I know a lot of people are saying, "Hey, well, Ben Simmons provides them defense. He can push the pace to get Seth Curry, who's another shooter, just helps them." And both teams' goal is to win a title. And Ben Simmons, and we've seen this for 3 straight years, does not help you in the playoffs. Pushing the pace and all that good stuff, that's nice in the regular season, but we're not here for the regular season. The reason for the season is the postseason. The reason for the season is the title. And Ben Simmons is a guy who will run to the dunker spot. As we saw versus Atlanta, he'll be scared to dunk. So, and unless that somehow magically changes, I don't see how anyone could say that this is a win for Brooklyn. This is a guy who just does not give you anything during the postseason. And my hope, and a lot of Joel Embiid fans' hope and Sixers fans' hope was eventually he would start shooting. Everybody's seen the YouTube clips of him shooting, Instagram, open runs, pulling up for three. It's never translated to the regular season. And I thought, hey, this might be the year that it happens. And then I listened to this, I read this interview that Ramona Shelburne had with Ben Simmons. And Ben Simmons, he said two things that just concern me. One, he said, even though I wasn't responding to the Sixers calls and texts, they should have still came from Philadelphia, from one side of the country, to LA, another side of the country, to come see me. That's one. The second thing that he said that concerned me was, even though he played bad versus Atlanta, he felt that Joel Embiid shouldn't have attacked him because he didn't attack Joel Embiid for playing bad in Toronto. To me, those two things just show a complete lack of self-awareness. One, you don't answer my calls and texts, I still have to pull up for you. What type of situation is that? I think we've all been in bad relationships. Are you crazy? You don't answer my calls and texts, I still got to show up at your job? I got to be the crazy stalker that shows up? We grown men, and I have to, hey, you can't answer my call and text, but you still want me to see you? Like, what are we doing here? And then the second thing is like, oh, he played bad versus Toronto. I think Joel Embiid was like plus 90 for the whole series versus Toronto. Once again, Ben Simmons was irrelevant. He was in the dunker spot, not dunking. So, I hear about all the things that people are saying that how he's going to help Brooklyn. He's a perfect fit next to Kyrie. And it's another trade. The Mavs just traded Kristaps Porzingis for Spencer Dinwiddie and Bertans. Wow. Wow. That's a terrible trade for Dallas. Why would you? Spencer Dinwiddie is unless this is a trade for another trade, this is a terrible trade for Dallas. Porzingis has upside. It's funny. I have a Luka Doncic video that's coming out next week, and it's crazy that everything just seems to be everybody else's fault except Luka's fault. But let me just finish my thought on Brooklyn, and I'll break down this trade. So this is a guy who's just not going to help you in the postseason. And the potential lineup that Brooklyn's going to run out there is Seth Curry, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, KD, and whoever they're going to play at center, Aldridge, Blake Griffin, or Drummond. You have two players in Seth Curry and Kyrie Irving that can't defend anybody. They can't defend their shadows. They can't defend their right to vote. They can't defend they can't defend anything. If you remember, you saw Red Mamba baptize Kevin Huerter, baptize Seth Curry, Game 7. So the defensive ability of this team is going to be severely lacking. Ben Simmons can't cover up everything. I'm talking about what happened last year. Ben Simmons was on that team watching Kevin Huerter destroy Seth Curry. So you put those two in the backcourt together, I don't know how you're going to defend anybody. Ben Simmons is going to be the easy guy to defend off of, to send help in double team at Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. So I think this trade is still in for the Sixers. I know it's probably tough for them to give up Seth Curry and his shooting, but let's see if they make other trades as this deadline goes on. So it's hard to really say what their team is going to be. I think they're going to definitely try to add something. Danny Green's contract is a contract that I think is very tradable. They've been talking about moving Tobias Harris, maybe a trade for Harrison Barnes for Tobias Harris. I think that would greatly benefit them and actually help out the Kings, because they would give them a little bit more scoring. But let's touch on this Kristaps Porzingis trade. So I'm not sure if there's another move to come off of this. So it says Kristaps Porzingis package for a package centered around Spencer Dinwiddie and Bertans. First, who did Dinwiddie? He's a guy that I liked until I started watching him play. I liked him when I was looking at box scores and I watched him play. He doesn't really have a feel for the game. He's not a guy that can play off ball. They already have Luka, who is a very ball dominant player. You have Jalen Brunson, who's already in the starting lineup. So I just don't see how Spencer Dinwiddie helps you. He's a bigger guard, but he's not really shown the defensive prowess that you would expect to see. So I don't see how it helps you. For the Wizards, they just traded my man Harrell to the Hornets. Hornets have been rumored for Montrezl Harrell for years. He might be a great pick and roll partner for LaMelo Ball, but that's another team that I think needs some defense, and Montrezl Harris has never really defended. So we'll see what exactly compensation for that. But as far as the Mavericks, I just don't understand this trade. I think this is just a thirsty trade to me. They've been trying to get off of the money. So maybe let me look at the contract length. So Kristaps Porzingis. Let's go to NBA trade museum. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Because I don't think the NBA trade machine immediately updates to get this. So Kristaps Porzingis has 3 years at $31 million left on his deal. And then he was traded for Dinwiddie that has 3 years, $17 million on his deal. And Bertans, who has 4 years, 6. So it's the same thing. They're not getting relief as far as getting this money off the books sooner. So unless there's another trade coming on this trade, this is an F- for the Dallas. And I know that there's been lack of synergy between Luka and Kristaps Porzingis, but to me, I just don't understand how this helps Dallas. Unless Luka said, I want this guy off my team, and I'm going to ask for a trade unless this guy is off my team. I don't see why you would rush to do this trade. Like, it doesn't really make sense. For Washington, I love it. They were chock full of wings, of 6'8" guys who could do things, and they had pretty much had too many redundancies on their team. I think that Porzingis is someone who's done very well in his career when he's been the featured focal point of the team, and he's definitely going to be that now, especially with Bradley Beal being out. It'll be interesting to see how he pairs with a Rui Hachimura, how he pairs with Kyle Kuzma, who has played well for them. But hey, these guys might be out on their way out too. I think that Washington definitely needs to reshape their team. If they're going to give Bradley Beal all the money that they're supposed to be giving him this offseason, they need to surround him with a better team, the team that makes more sense. And, the Spencer Dinwiddie experiment, to get off that and to get off of Bertans, who hasn't done anything in years since he's been paid, who hasn't even really made shots since he's been paid, is crazy. I don't see how he's going to be a useful player for Dallas. You have a negative defender in Luka, negative defender in Brunson. You put him on the team. That's rotisserie gold barbecue smothered baby back chicken. That's just barbecue chicken everywhere. That's just a buffet of barbecue chicken everywhere. So to me, I don't know. Unless there's a deal that's off this deal makes 0 cents to me. 0 cents to me. The Celtics acquired Derek White. I like that deal for the Celtics. Josh Richardson, since that one season in Miami where he was running the point guard, he just really hasn't shown that much improvement as a player and as a shooter. So this team, the Celtics team, they're just getting a pretty big amalgamation of players who can play and make plays. To start Smart, Derek White, the two wings. Check out my special on why I tell you why those two wings are Jalen Tatum and Jason Brown, why they can't play together. Check that out. But that's a solid team, and I guess that's making the best of a bad situation. Goran Dragic looks like he's going to get bought out. Is he going to go to Dallas? That was the rumor, but they have Spencer Dinwiddie. So it doesn't really make sense to me. The Suns finalized a trade for Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig really helped them last year, and I think they were sad to see him go for Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith, in the minutes that I saw him this year, where Ayton was hurt and JaVale McGee was hurt, where he started, he looked like a really good player to me. I'm surprised that they moved off him. Maybe there's attitude issues and work ethic issues that are surrounding that. The Bucks acquired Serge Ibaka. That was a 4-team trade that sent Marvin Bagley to Detroit. I think that he should be one of the happiest players in the league. He's going to Detroit, where they have Cade Cunningham, but there's not really they have Cade Cunningham and the other wing. His name is slipping me my mind right now, but it's a place where he's going to get shots and touches, and he can increase his trade value. And I think he's going into a contract year, so let's see the type of player that he can be. Him and his agent have been asking for a fresh start, and it's a good place to get it. Dante DiVincenzo goes from the Bucks to the Kings. I like that for the Kings. The Kings were rumored to get him in the Bojan Bogdanovic trade that got nixed because of tampering, because it was before the deadline. So I always liked White Dante, as Bomani Jones calls him. So I think that that's an interesting player. I hated the Halliburton deal, but this is a pretty thin roster, and just to add players under contract who can play and have some upside, that's a good thing. So he's a good athlete. I don't know where he plays on the team, and does he start over Donovan Mitchell, or does he come off the bench? Or Davion Mitchell, excuse me, but we'll see. They also got Josh Jackson and Trey Lyles. Once again, they needed players. For the Clippers to get money off their books, I really like the improvement of Harvenstein this year. The times that I've seen him, he's been very smooth, very fluid, can finish around the rim. They have Zubac there, so it looks like that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are out for the season. So why pay all this money into the tax when for a player in Ibaka who's had back issues and is making a pretty sizable contract for the Bucks. They get Ibaka. There's been talk of them needing help at the center position because Brook Lopez's injury. So I don't know. He's not really a true center, the true big men that you have to guard in this league, Joel Embiid. Well, there's only one out east, so maybe you take it in steps, and hopefully out west you don't have to see Anthony Davis or the Joker. But the big men that you do have to worry about in this league, the true elite ones, Ibaka doesn't help them, but he's a big, and he's better defensively than Bobby Portis, but Bobby Portis is giving them good minutes and good shots. So, let's see what else. I cannot believe that trade. I cannot believe that Porzingis trade. Why would they do that? Unless Luka said, I want this guy off my team, I think it's crazy. Unless he says that, I don't understand why you would do that. Unless he just is empirically said, I want this guy off my team. When they played in the bubble versus the Lakers a couple of years back, versus the Clippers, a couple of years back when he was healthy, he played really well until he got hurt that series. He played extremely well, in my personal opinion. But there's always been a question about the fit. So, maybe just for that package. And, as I talked about the Lakers last episode, it doesn't look like they're going to make a trade. Looks like they're going to stay in pat and, be in this trough of sorrow. And, just to me, I mean, once again, there's no shame in failure. There's shame in cowardice. And, I think it's a cowardly move to say, hey, we're not going to even try. Like, we're going to hold on to this 2027 pick. It's just, the league is really wide open this year. And listen, and I'm watching the NBA thing, and Zach Lowe is saying the same thing. He's shocked. Yeah, I do something, get somebody. It doesn't look like they want to do anything. I don't know. I just, and I've seen this a lot in the NBA and the NFL, but the NFL, you're forced to make changes because of the shortness of the contracts and the injury, the nature of injury in the league. Players get hurt. You have to cut players. There's not guaranteed contracts in that way. Fully guaranteed contracts are a rarity. So, there's leads to be more movement in the NFL, but just the conservative nature of some GMs and some teams just doesn't make sense. Like, we're terrible, let's continue to be terrible. Like, why not try? John Wall had a video that got released a couple of days ago. It showed that he was in shape, making plays. Fundamentally, if you watch basketball, if you know anything about basketball, you know that John Wall and Russell Westbrook are fundamentally two different type of players. The way that they play, the way that they approach the game. They're both athletes, but they fundamentally approach the game different. And it's time for a change. So why not try? It doesn't really make sense to me. Looking forward, we can go back to what I started for. The Harden trade. Once again, I'm interested to see what's going on with Brooklyn. I'm surprised they have not made another trade. They have these two picks. They have James Harden off their cap sheet, so they're saving a little bit of money. I don't know why they haven't made a trade, but we'll see. We have 6 minutes to the deadline, so we'll see if something comes through the transom. It's just a lot of the trades that I'm seeing today.
Eric Gordon. I'm at least pitching that to see another guy that could have been discussed. I don't even believe it's Christian Wood and John Wall for that package. Which would have been quality. Let's go. Like package for between Wingy and Logo.
Yeah, I don't understand. And I'm looking at Woj's timeline today. And while I'm on this, shout out to Brian Windhorst, man, because he took a lot of flack. He was the first person to say that this trade is happening. And a lot of people were like, oh no, why would the what's the name do that? Why would they say such a thing? And he was right. And so shout out to him. But yeah, the Lakers, Ramona Shelburne, she's good friends with Jeannie Buss. So she is one of the more plugged in people, and she said they're just standing pat. So I don't know, their GM Pelinka, I don't know. I mean, to make this trade, to have LeBron James on your team and just to only win one title, in a year where the league is such in flux, to not try and to go for it, it just surprises me. And the way that they're probably looking at it is like, hey, we're LA. Let's not trade all of our assets for the future. Who knows what that 2027 pick is going to look like. We're always going to be able to get stars. But before Bron came, you weren't able to get stars. And this is the same thing with Cleveland. When LeBron was in their orbit towards the end, they started being reticent to make moves because they're like, oh, we don't want to be put in a position where we losing picks and we don't have picks to this guy is gone. But you have a once in a lifetime player in your orbit. You have to take every advantage of it. Once again, go to sleep knowing, hey, when I had LeBron James and AD, I did everything I could to put a good roster against them. To watch what you watched yesterday in Portland and the day before in Milwaukee, and to say, hey, we're just going to stand back and we're not going to make a move, not one move. It's a sad commentary. It's a sad commentary. Hey, you tried the Russell Westbrook experiment. The haters are going to laugh regardless. It's time to move on. There's something in business. You hire fast, you fire fast. If you made a mistake, let's both get off of it. There's no shame to either person. And let's try to see if we can't rectify it. You get somewhere that's good for you. I get somewhere that's good for me. It's not fair to Russ. He should go somewhere where he can play Russ ball. I read if he goes to Houston, he's going to immediately aggressively pursue a buyout. That would be an interesting thing to see. What teams would be interested in Russell Westbrook and where does he sign? That would be really interesting. So, I don't know. 2 minutes to the deadline. We'll see. I don't think if it hasn't happened, it's not going to happen generally. I remember one year, right at the Horn. That was the year that Isaiah Thomas and Gordon Dragic and a couple other point guards. That was the year that there was that point guard carousel, and that came at like 12:01, and then for a good 6-7 minutes you were getting updates on this spectacular trade that happened. So maybe that's the case here, but I don't see it. It's disappointing for the Lake Show, disappointing for my Lakers, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen for them this year. So oh well. I mean, if they don't care, I don't care. If if y'all like it, I love it. So we talk about the teams that can trade. Now, I do think that the Sixers just try to do one more move. So we'll see if the Sixers or Brooklyn can get one more move through the transom. And I think it's going to be a healthy buyout market. Gary Harris wasn't bought out. I think that he should be the crown jewel of the players that I've heard that are going to get bought out. I think he's part of the reason that Denver upset the Clippers that year in the bubble was his defensive work on Paul George and his defensive work on Donovan Mitchell after he came back. He missed the majority of the series, but played, I believe, Game 6 and Game 7 and was stellar. So I think he's going to be the crown jewel. He could help a team like the Lakers, but once again, you're getting to a point where Russell Westbrook's not even playing fourth quarters. Like, what are we doing? So 1 minute to the deadline. Let's see. Refreshing the screen. Shams. Let's see what Shams got for me. You know, one thing I appreciate about Daryl Morey, people take shots at him all the time, like all the time. He's not scared to make no moves. He's not scared to make no moves. Somebody say, oh, that's too much. The price of the brick is too high. Why we have to add Seth Curry for a player that age? Nah, I'm going for it.
Bill is still in Washington, but as mentioned, the biggest trade of the day, Ben Simmons.
So it's done. So let's go back over it again. Ben Simmons to Brooklyn. Picks, 2 first-round picks. Seth Curry and Drummond for James Harden. So once again, I see this as a clear home run for Brooklyn. The Sixers, and I just don't see how anyone could say that the Brooklyn Nets won this trade. One, they have 2 players that you don't know their playing status, whether it's by hook or crook with Ben Simmons or Kyrie Irving. Now, I do think that the mask mandate and the vaccine mandate is starting to change around the country and is going to change eventually for the Nets, and you're going to get everyone in the lineup. But if you just look at the team, how they're going to push out going forward. You have Kyrie Irving, bad defender. Seth Curry, bad defender. Ben Simmons won't shoot. The only solid thing that you know that you can count on both ends of the court, to pound on availability-wise, is KD. And to ask him to do all these things is too hard. To say, hey, well, Kyrie Irving and Seth Curry can't defend, but we'll be fine because we have Ben Simmons over here. Ben Simmons can't guard everybody. He couldn't guard everyone in the Atlanta series when Red Mamba Kevin Huerter was going off on Seth Curry. He was on the court. He couldn't guard Trey Young and Kevin Huerter at the same time. So you have this backcourt that's not going to defend. Now, hey, maybe they might bomb teams out of the gym, but remember, Harden was the star that stirred the drink. He was the point guard. I don't like Kyrie Irving as the point guard because his decision-making is off. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward with that. For the Sixers, I love the trade for them. You get Harden, Maxey. You can start Tybal or Danny Green if you like. You still have Tobias Harris and you have Joel Embiid. You have guys. The only guy that has had defensive issues in his career is Harden, but he's someone that has shown the ability to give effort to improve. You have Joel Embiid behind him. You have an ace defender and ace defender and Tybal that you can bring off the bench. You still have Shake Milton to give you scoring off the bench. So they're a team that's going to be all right. They do need a center. They got Paul Millsap in the deal, which is underrated. Paul Millsap was unhappy with his role in Brooklyn. So, maybe he's someone that can give them back up 5 minutes. The only guy that Paul Millsap theoretically can't guard is the guy that's on his team. So for extended stretches, at least in the East, is the guy that's on his team. So I think that they'll be fine with that. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how things go forward. I think the buyout market, once again, is going to be robust. Who's going to get Gary Harris? There's probably some other names that I'm not mentioning. I know Goran Dragic is going to be in the buyout market. I don't know what his interest in going to Dallas would be at that time, but we'll see. The next biggest trade, we have to go perfect segue from Dallas to the Porzingis trade. To me, it's just a thirsty trade. Unless I thought the tensions started to boil down. I thought that they were at a simmering pace, that it wasn't as hot as it was before, but I'm guessing it was. Because basketball-wise, this doesn't make sense. To put Bartons on the court, you at the same time as Luka or Brunson. I mean, that's just too much of a defensive hill to climb. And Spencer Dinwiddie, he doesn't provide anything. He's shooting number, I believe. Okay, so another trade just came in. Daniel Tice to the Celtics.
Wait. City, get to the floor.
So Houston trades Daniel Tice to the Celtics. Boston is sending guard Dennis Schroeder to the Rockets in the deal. So I'm guessing Daniel Schroeder is going to be brought out. I don't see why. I see no reason why they would keep him. It doesn't really make any sense to keep him at that time. So he's going to be a buyout candidate. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. Not too many of the top teams need a point guard. I don't see in that many top teams. I'm thinking off the top of my head that need Schroeder. I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. If it's true that he turned down that $100 million contract, that's probably one of the worst decisions he's ever made. So we'll see about that. There was some talk that Milwaukee wanted Schroeder, so maybe he signs there. There was some talk that Milwaukee wanted him. So and the next trade, as far as I think impact, was the Bucks 4-wheel deal that the Bucks acquired Ibaka. Once again, I think this is insurance on Brook Lopez. They gave up Dante DiVincenzo, a player that I liked. They're a team that's starting to skew a lot older. That's one thing that they do need to be concerned about. You don't want to wake up one day and all your players are creaky. You know, that's kind of what happened to Miami at the end of the LeBron D Wade era. And, you know, they traded just another young player for a win now candidate. And, you know, Ibaka's coming off back injuries. Is he still the same player? I'm not sure. The Pistons are sending Josh Jackson and Trey Lyle to the Kings for Bagley. I'm sure Bagley is ecstatic about that. His agent attacked the Kings for keeping him. And, you know, there was a saga where he wasn't playing most of the year. So this is good for him. The Kings didn't trade Harrison Barnes. You know, that was a guy that was rumored that was hot on the market. And then it came out today they're not trying to trade him for Fisher assets. They want players that can help them now. I think the Kings see themselves as a team that can be the 8th seed and go into the play-in and actually make some noise. So I don't know. We'll see. You know, they won last night. They were hugging and kissing each other like they won the Super Bowl, won the title. So it was a sad commentary, but it is what it is. So, you know, the Clippers have done a lot to position themselves for next year. So it's going to be interesting to see what type of player Kawhi and Paul George come back as, but they've done a lot to position themselves for next year. Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, and a top 4 protected pick to the Spurs for Derek White. Derek White, let's see his splits right now. So Derek White this year is averaging 14 points a game, shooting 31% from 3. Oh, that's disgusting. For some reason in my mind, I saw him as a better shooter than that. I don't know. I don't know why they would be so thirsty to get this team to trade. They've been on a winning streak to trade for Daniel Tice, another player. You know, they have a plethora of bigs. I don't get that trade either. You know, the GM was a former head coach in Brad Stevens, and, you know, he loved Daniel Tice as a player. So maybe that's, you know, just the fondness of him that guided that trade. The Suns got Daniel Craig. The Suns' problems from last year, they still kind of exist this year. They added the big man in Biyombo and McGee. So maybe that helps them to not be so small and slight and not have Giannis just rampage against them. If that's what they see as their major issue. But, you know, they gave up on Jalen, the young boy Smith. And, you know, when I saw him play, he looked solid to me. He looked solid. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. So, I'll just stay on for a couple more minutes to see if something else sneaks through the transom. It seems like Jeremy Grant is remaining with Detroit. That's kind of disappointing, but He kept saying that all the teams that were interested in trading for him were like, oh, we need a 3-and-D guy. We need this and that. And the reason why he left Denver is that he was tired of being the 3-and-D guy. He wanted to be the guy with the ball in his hands. And so it's not surprising that he said, you know what, I'm not doing that.
When James Harden was acquired. I mean, players were going.
No deals for the Lakers. Oh.
When he got on the court, the sentiment of all three of those players was always, if we're healthy, if we can all stay out there, if we don't have these issues of personal issues and Kyrie Irving being away from the team this second, we are great. We are a great team and we think that we can beat anyone. As Zappos said, now they may become the greatest sort of theoretical team that we've ever seen in NBA history. Do you believe that?
You know what? I do, but here's the thing. You know what's the great thing about this trade today? Is that it's great for the
So say no trades for the Lakers, no trades for the Knicks. I have a Knicks video that's coming out. I was gonna drop it today, but I'll probably hold it because the Knicks is just sad, So I'm gonna hold it. I'll probably drop it on Saturday after the trade deadline. After the trade deadline, the energy rush of the deadline, everybody's gonna be looking at the trade deadline. This is the most wonderful time of the year, and there was actually some trades this year. So shout out to some of the GMs that weren't scared. If I'm John Wall, I'm asking for a buyout. If I'm Russell Westbrook, I'm asking for a buyout. I mean, let's try to see if we can get this book money off the books. Let's move it off the books. I don't know. How much would you really be willing to take on it? And some people's like, man, I'm not taking $1 less, but you're a hooper and you don't get to hoop. You only have so many of these great years. So with Westbrook, I don't know. He might ask for the buyout if they keep sitting him in fourth quarter. So I don't know. So the league is pretty much said, we'll see what the buyout market looks like. Let me see. Let me type in. Top buyout candidates. Top buyout candidates. Let's see.
Now they're shifting their focus to the buyout.
Okay, so Gary Harris, like I said, Thad Young, Kevin Knox, Goran Dragic, we already talked about here. John Wall and Russell Westbrook. Oh my Lord Jesus. If I'm John Wall, man, I don't know. He's made a lot of money in his career. You're a hooper. Let's hoop. If I give up, he's owed what, 80 million? I'll take 70. Y'all won't do the deal? Okay. But Westbrook, I'm old because Westbrook, especially for Westbrook, and this is the interesting thing about Westbrook in the bio. Kanye West talked about this. Like there's a triage, right? Like when you are someone who has been famous in one thing, music, but wants to be, famous and successful in another thing, clothes and shoes and fashion, there's a triage. Like your fame that you're using for music, you want to use that fame to get this one going. But if your music, while you're getting this one going, if your music goes down, you don't have the energy to put into this one. And while you're working on this one goes down. So you have to triage it a little bit. And Russell Westbrook is a guy who has a clothing line, who has other initiatives. But those initiatives, it's unfortunate to say, are more powerful and will be talked about more when you're Russell Westbrook, the MVP, Russell Westbrook, the difference maker. And while he's playing in LA, he's not any of those things. He's a laughingstock. He's a joke. So I think that it would behoove him to look at a buyout. Maybe go look at a buyout and say, hey, Knicks, I'll play on the minimum. You guys are struggling over there. You guys need a jolt of energy. I might do well in the Garden. Hey, Knicks was good. was good. And for John Wall, like, he's gonna be 32 next year. That's not old. Chris Paul's 37 doing you with the nutrition and the stuff that we've been shown now, you can have a long career if you put the work in. So if you're John Wall, you're not 38 years old where you're focusing on retirement and that's all this. You're still a hooper. You hoop. So, hey, can I give up 10 million right now to catch money on the back end? So I don't know. That's interesting, but a lot of people are down on the Lakers. THT. I'm actually a fan of THT. I just think he's playing out of position. I think he needs to be a point guard, but none. We'll see if these guys get back. But yeah, they stayed pat. They didn't make their move. They made their trade in the offseason. That was Russell Westbrook. So we'll see what happens. So we'll go ahead and leave it there. Let's go ahead and get the bet of the day in. As far as bets, I went 1-1 yesterday. The Warriors without Draymond, they have struggled. Draymond is ironically one of the most underrated players in NBA history and one of the more overrated players at the same time. And, I don't know how that's theoretically possible, but I believe that wholeheartedly to be true. So he was out. The ball just doesn't snap and move, and they got shelled. They got what did Emmitt Smith call it? They got debacled. They got debacled. I like the Brooklyn Wizards game, but now that this trade is happening, you got pieces moving all over the place. I wouldn't touch it. I probably still take Brooklyn. Kyrie Irving's going to be able to play this game. So, and Washington sent a lot of players out, so they're going to not have that many guys available for this game. You know what? Let me just go ahead and try to sneak that in the goalpost right now. All right, so I'll just go ahead. So I think you should take Brooklyn in the +1.5. I think there's obviously some pressure that's been relieved because of this trade. So I definitely like Miami -4.5. I always buy the number down. I don't like half points being the reason that causes you money or costs you a push. So I definitely would do that. Dallas, Porzingis, I think he was hurt, so he hasn't been playing for them. So I don't think this hurts them. They play the Clippers. Clippers are sending some players out, so they're in a bid and flux. So I think Dallas -6 is pretty good. I think you should probably stay away from the Bucks and Suns game. If anything, I would take the Bucks. And that's and the Warriors -9 if Clay plays. The Knicks have been struggling. And then Memphis, it's a high line -11, but they've just been killing. Like I said, haven't been as scared of high lines because we're getting so close to the All-Star break. Detroit made a couple of trades today. So, are their players, heads going to be in the right mental? You got guys moving out, guys coming in. So I like that. I like that move as a trade as well. So, all right. So we'll go ahead and end it here. The game is a game. So I picked 4 games. I picked Memphis. I took Brooklyn money line, Miami with the points, and I like Dallas with the points. I do like the Bucks, but that's not an official pick. But if I was going to take them, you should probably take them money line. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I see this Hornets to Montreal Harrell Wizards deal. I talked about that at the start. I just think that's an interesting trade for them. They've wanted Montreal Harrell for a long time, so they got him. So let's see what he does for them. I just think that they're not that great of a defensive team, and you have Miles Bridges, who plays a little bit of that 4 position. I don't think he really complements Miles that well. So I don't know. We'll see. The game is a game.
So what's up, man? What's up with you otherwise, The game is a game. always.